You wake up thinking you're being responsible, careful, strategic. You tell yourself you're just waiting for the right moment, the right opportunity, the right conditions, more certainty, more stability, more security. And on the surface, it makes sense. After all, who doesn't want to feel safe? Who doesn't want guarantees? Who doesn't want to avoid mistakes? But here's the truth most people never confront. While you're trying to protect yourself, you're silently losing your biggest opportunities. And the most dangerous part, you don't even realize it. Because the pursuit of security feels like progress. It feels intelligent. It feels mature. But in many cases, it's just fear wearing a suit. Andrew Carnegie understood something that goes completely against the way most people think. Security is not the path to wealth. It's often the barrier to it. Because real opportunities rarely come wrapped in certainty. They come disguised as risk, as doubt, as discomfort. And if your priority is always to feel safe, you will reject exactly what could change your life. Now think about this carefully. Every major decision that could elevate your life comes with uncertainty. Starting something new, investing, changing direction, taking responsibility, stepping into something bigger. None of these come with guarantees. And that's exactly why most people hesitate. They wait, they analyze, they overthink, they delay. And while they're doing that, someone else is acting. Someone else is moving. Someone else is taking the opportunity that was right in front of them. And this is where the silent loss happens. Not because you failed, but because you didn't move. Carnegie didn't build wealth by avoiding risk. He built it by understanding it, by calculating it, and most importantly, by acting despite it. He knew that waiting for perfect conditions was the fastest way to stay exactly where you are. Because perfect conditions don't exist. There is always uncertainty. There is always risk. There is always a reason to wait. And if you listen to those reasons, you never leave the starting point. Now here's the deeper layer. The desire for security is not really about safety. It's about control. You want to feel in control of the outcome. You want to predict what will happen. You want guarantees that things will work. But reality doesn't operate like that. Growth is unpredictable. Opportunity is uncertain. And success is built in environments where control is limited. So when you demand control, you reject growth. Because growth requires stepping into the unknown. And the unknown feels uncomfortable. But discomfort is not danger. It's expansion. And this is where most people get it wrong. They interpret discomfort as a signal to stop, when in fact, it's often a signal to move forward. Carnegie understood that discomfort is the price of advancement. If you feel completely safe, you're probably not growing. You're maintaining. You're preserving. You're protecting what you already have. And while that may feel good, it keeps you stuck. Because wealth is not built in maintenance mode. It's built in expansion mode. And expansion always involves uncertainty. Now observe your own behavior. How many times have you delayed a decision because it wasn't the right moment? How many opportunities have you analyzed so much that you ended up doing nothing? How many times have you chosen the safe option, even knowing it wouldn't take you where you want to go? This is not strategy. This is avoidance. And avoidance has a cost that doesn't show immediately, but accumulates over time. Missed opportunities, delayed growth, lost momentum, and eventually, regret. Because one day you look back and realize it wasn't lack of opportunity that held you back. It was excess of caution. Now let's go deeper. There is a hidden addiction in the pursuit of security. The addiction to comfort. Comfort feels good. It's predictable. It's familiar. It doesn't challenge you. But that's exactly why it limits you. Because everything that could elevate your life exists outside of your comfort zone. And if you refuse to leave it, you refuse to evolve. Carnegie didn't chase comfort. He chased expansion. He put himself in situations where he had to grow, where he had to adapt, where he had to become more. And that's what changed his trajectory. Now here's a critical shift. You don't need to eliminate risk. You need to become someone who can handle it. Because risk is not the problem. Unpreparedness is. Fear is not the problem. Inaction is. Uncertainty is not the problem. Your response to it is. When you develop the ability to act even without guarantees, you unlock a completely different level. Because now you're no longer waiting. You're creating. You're no longer reacting. You're leading. And that's where opportunities start appearing more frequently. Not because there are more of them, but because now you're able to see and seize them. Carnegie believed that opportunities favor those who move, not those who hesitate. And movement creates clarity. Most people wait for clarity before acting. But clarity often comes after action. You act. You learn. You adjust. You improve. And through that process, you gain direction. But if you stay still, you stay confused. Because overthinking doesn't create clarity. It creates paralysis. And paralysis kills opportunity. Now think about this. What are you currently postponing in the name of security? What decision are you avoiding? What move are you delaying? Because that's exactly where your next level is hiding. Not in what feels safe, but in what feels uncomfortable and necessary. And here's the paradox. The more you chase security, the more fragile your position becomes. Because you become dependent on stability. And stability can change at any moment. But when you develop the ability to operate in uncertainty, you become adaptable. And adaptability is true security. Carnegie didn't rely on stable conditions. He relied on his ability to navigate unstable ones. And that made him resilient. Now let's bring this to a practical level. If you want to stop losing opportunities, you need to change your decision-making pattern. You need to stop asking, is this safe? And start asking, does this move me forward? Because those are completely different questions. Safety keeps you in place. Progress moves you ahead. And you cannot have both at the same level. At some point, you have to choose comfort or growth, stability or expansion, security or opportunity. And that choice defines everything. But here's something important. Choosing growth doesn't mean being reckless. It means being intentional. It means assessing risk, but not being paralyzed by it. It means preparing, but not waiting forever. It means acting, even when you don't have all the answers, because you never will. And that's okay. Carnegie understood that action is always imperfect, but inaction is always costly. One moves you forward with learning. The other keeps you stuck with excuses. And over time, those small decisions compound. And if you choose to take it, everything begins to reorganize around that decision. Not instantly, not magically, but inevitably. Because action creates movement. And movement creates visibility. You start to see things you couldn't see before. Connections, possibilities, paths that were always there, but invisible to someone standing still. This is something Andrew Carnegie mastered at a high level. He didn't wait for clarity to appear. He created clarity through movement. And that's a fundamental shift you need to understand. Clarity is not the starting point. It's the result of action. But most people invert this. They wait to feel certain, to feel ready, to feel confident. And while they wait, nothing changes. Because confidence doesn't come before action. It comes from action. You act. You survive. You learn. And your mind begins to trust you. That's how confidence is built. Not through thinking. Through doing. Now let's break something important. There is a hidden illusion in the idea of being ready. You tell yourself, I'll start when I know more. I'll move when I feel more prepared. I'll act when the timing is right. But here's the reality. You never feel fully ready for something that actually matters. Because if it truly expands you, it will challenge you. And if it challenges you, it will feel uncomfortable. So if you're waiting to feel ready, you're waiting forever. Carnegie understood that readiness is a decision, not a feeling. You decide to move, and then you become ready along the way. That's how growth actually works. Now here's another layer. Every time you delay action, you're not just losing opportunity. You're reinforcing a pattern of hesitation, a pattern of doubt, a pattern of avoidance. And patterns become identity. You start to see yourself as someone who thinks a lot but doesn't act, someone who almost did it, someone who was close. And that identity quietly shapes your future. Because once you believe that's who you are, you keep acting accordingly. That's why this moment matters more than it seems. Because it's not just about one decision. It's about breaking a pattern and building a new one. A pattern of movement, of execution, of stepping forward even when it's uncertain. Now let's talk about something even deeper. There is a cost to missed opportunities that most people never calculate. It's not just the money you didn't make. It's the version of you that didn't get built. Every opportunity carries transformation. It forces you to think differently, to act differently, to become more. So when you avoid the opportunity, you avoid the growth that comes with it. And that's the real loss. Because money can be recovered, time can be managed, but unrealized growth creates a gap that compounds, a gap between who you are and who you could have become. Carnegie didn't just chase financial gain. He chased expansion. He understood that becoming more valuable naturally leads to earning more. And that's a shift you need to internalize. Focus on becoming, not just achieving, because achievement without growth is fragile. But growth creates sustainable results. Now bring this back to your reality. What is the move you should be making, but haven't? Not the easy one, not the comfortable one, the real one, the one that creates tension when you think about it. That's your signal. That tension is pointing to expansion, and avoiding it is keeping you stuck. Now here's the discipline required. You don't negotiate with that feeling. You act on it. Because if you start negotiating, your mind will always find a way to keep you safe. And safe is where nothing changes. Carnegie operated with a different standard. When he saw a path aligned with growth, he moved, not recklessly, but decisively. And decisiveness is a competitive advantage because most people hesitate. Most people delay. Most people overanalyze. So when you develop the ability to decide and act quickly, you position yourself ahead of the majority. Now understand this clearly. Speed is not about rushing. It's about eliminating unnecessary delay. It's about recognizing when you already have enough information and moving. Because waiting for perfect information is just another form of fear. And fear, disguised as logic, is still fear. Now let's talk about trust. Not trust in the situation. Trust in yourself. Because at the end of the day, you don't need guarantees that things will work. You need certainty that you will handle whatever happens. That's real confidence. Not this will succeed, but I will figure it out. Carnegie built that level of trust. He knew that even if something failed, he would extract value from it, learn, move again. And that made him unstoppable. Because now failure was no longer an endpoint. It was part of the process. And when you remove the fear of failure, you unlock speed. You unlock action. You unlock opportunity. Now imagine operating like that. Not waiting. Not hesitating. But moving with intention. Adjusting as you go. Learning in real time. Do you understand how much faster your life would change? Because most people are stuck in preparation mode, while a few are in execution mode. And execution always wins. Always. Because the market rewards movement. It rewards initiative. It rewards those who step forward, not those who wait on the sidelines. Now let's bring this to a final layer. At some point, You need to stop identifying as someone who is trying to improve and start identifying as someone who executes, someone who moves, someone who acts, because identity drives behavior, and behavior drives results. If you see yourself as someone who hesitates, you will hesitate. If you see yourself as someone who takes action, you will act. So the shift is internal first. You decide who you are, and then you prove it through action, again and again, until it becomes natural, until it becomes automatic, until it becomes who you are. And this is where everything compounds, because now you're no longer fighting yourself. You're aligned, and alignment creates power. Now the question returns, but at a higher level. What are you going to do with the opportunities in front of you? Not tomorrow, not when you feel ready. No, because opportunity doesn't wait, and neither should you. The difference between the life you have and the life you want is not time, it's decision. And that decision is always available, right here, right now. So choose carefully, because every moment you choose safety, you reinforce limitation. But every moment you choose growth, you expand your future. And over time, those choices define everything. Your results, your identity, your reality, and eventually, your legacy. So this is it. No more waiting. No more excuses. No more hiding behind the illusion of security. Now it's about movement. Decisive, intentional, consistent movement. Because in the end, it's not the one who knew the most or planned the most who wins. It's the one who moved and kept moving until opportunity turned into reality. And when opportunity finally turns into reality, most people will look at you and call it luck. They'll say you were in the right place at the right time, that you had advantages, that things just worked out for you. But they won't see what really happened. They won't see the decisions you made when no one was watching, the moments you acted while others hesitated, the risks you accepted while others stayed comfortable. Because from the outside, results always look simpler than they really are. But you know the truth. It wasn't luck. It was alignment. It was choosing growth when it was uncomfortable. It was moving when it was uncertain. It was acting when it would have been easier to wait. And this is where everything connects. Because the gap between where you are and where you want to be is not filled by time. It's filled by decisions. Decisions you avoid or decisions you execute. And over time, those decisions compound. One action leads to another. One opportunity opens the next. One move creates momentum. And momentum is one of the most powerful forces you can build. Because once you have momentum, things stop feeling so heavy. You don't need to force yourself as much. You don't need to convince yourself as much. You're already in motion. And staying in motion becomes easier than stopping. This is what Andrew Carnegie understood better than most. He didn't rely on bursts of motivation. He built momentum through consistent action. And once that momentum was established, it carried him forward. Even in difficult moments, even in uncertain phases, even when results were not immediate, because he trusted the process he had built. And that's the level you need to reach, a level where you're not dependent on how you feel, a level where you don't need perfect conditions, a level where you move, because that's who you are. Now understand this final shift. Opportunities don't change your life. Your response to them does. Two people can face the exact same opportunity. One hesitates, analyzes, waits, misses it. The other moves, executes, and transforms their reality. The difference is not the opportunity. It's the decision. And that's empowering. Because it means your future is not controlled by external events. It's shaped by internal choices. Right now, you already have access to opportunities. Maybe not the biggest ones yet. Maybe not the obvious ones. But they are there. In conversations, in ideas, in possibilities you've been ignoring, in actions you've been postponing. And the more you train yourself to act, the more opportunities you begin to recognize. Because awareness grows with movement. Now let's bring everything into focus. The pursuit of security kept you still. Stillness limited your vision. Limited vision made you miss opportunities. Missed opportunities slowed your growth. And slow growth reinforced your fear. That was the cycle. But now you see it. And once you see it, you can break it. Not with a massive, dramatic action, but with a decision. A decision to stop prioritizing comfort. A decision to move even when it feels uncertain. A decision to act even when it's not perfect. Because perfection is not required. Movement is. And from this point forward, everything becomes a test. Every situation asks the same question. Will you choose security or will you choose growth? And your answer defines your trajectory, not once, but repeatedly. Because this is not a one-time decision. It's a pattern, a standard, a way of operating. And the more you choose growth, the more natural it becomes. Until one day, you don't even question it anymore. You just move. You see the opportunity, and you take it. You feel the discomfort, and you lean into it. You face the uncertainty, and you act anyway. And that's when everything changes permanently. Because now, you've become someone who doesn't wait. Someone who doesn't hide behind excuses. Someone who doesn't trade long-term potential for short-term comfort. You've become someone who executes. And that identity is what sustains everything you build. Now, one last truth. There will never be a final moment where everything feels completely safe. There will never be a stage where uncertainty disappears. There will never be a point where risk is gone. And that's not a problem. That's the game. Because the moment you accept that, you stop resisting reality. And when you stop resisting, you start operating with it. You start moving with it. You start using it. And that's where power comes from. Not from controlling everything, but from navigating anything. So from here on, don't wait for the perfect moment. Don't wait for certainty. Don't wait to feel ready. Because while you wait, life moves. Opportunities move. Other people move. And the question is no longer about what's available to you. It's about what you're willing to do with what's already in front of you. Because the truth is simple. The opportunity is rarely missing. The decision usually is. So make it. Move. Step forward. Even if it's imperfect. Even if it's uncertain. Even if it's uncomfortable. Because that's where everything you're looking for is hiding. On the other side of hesitation. On the other side of fear. On the other side of the need for security. And when you finally cross that line, you'll realize something powerful. You were never waiting for the right moment. The right moment was waiting for you to move. And now, you do.